Here's my new barn find, 1982 Volkswagen Golf Caddy pickup truck. See this? Yeah, the seat's covered because it's about like that. It smells horrid in there. It's a diesel, 1.6 liter diesel with 127,000 miles. I don't know how many kilometers that is. What was that, 250 kilometers? 250,000 kilometers. All the tires were flat. Used my awesome V-Air air pump that pumped them right up. They're all holding air. That's good. So now it's just a matter of pulling it up there. Will it pull? Who knows? It's in a ditch. 25 years of sitting. Loaded up, ready to go. New home. So this is a little 1.6 liter Volkswagen diesel engine. So the first thing I thought I'd do is look in the air box. So we just pull this off. I've already looked in it, and of course we got a surprise mouse house. And so apparently they're running in and out of the little hole right here. So we'll get out the mouse sucker 2.0 and suck that up. Hopefully, I mean, there's an intake runner that goes down in the engine on each side. Hopefully they kind of just stayed in there and didn't decide to venture down in further. I really don't want to take off the intake manifold. What's wrong with this? I have no idea. So we're just kind of peeking around in here, and I'm noticing all the baling wire. Let's see if we can get you down here. So the shift linkage right there is held on with baling wire. And you have, let's get you down here, the rack and pinion is held on with the, looks like the bottom of a shoe and some baling wire to keep the rack and pinion mounted. Kind of fancy. See if we can get you better in on that, what I'm assuming is the motor mount. Got some wire here, another piece of wire here. I'm assuming this engine, this little diesel engine's dancing around. Some little, we got, looks like up in here, looks like there's some broken hood hinges, some aluminum seal, so the radiator was leaking, but maybe it's just the overflow, which is obviously leaking. Coolant temperature switch, not hooked up. Vacuum, it looks like this runs off of a, I guess, a gear-driven vacuum pump, being a diesel. It goes to the master cylinder. The other vacuum lines are kind of busted in there for the AC. No air filter. I didn't even dawn on me when I took the air filter box off that there's absolutely no air filter. So I think the first generation mice ate the air filter and used it for bedding outside, and then they decided to bring their own bedding in and make their bed inside because there wasn't even slight remnants of an air filter. I did find the dipstick, so we pulled the dipstick out. Pull this out. And we do have oil, so should run like a top. Shouldn't have to do anything. Got oil. Just, I guess I'm just going to supply, I guess I'll just hook this up to a diesel source and just supply some diesel to it. And maybe some starter fluid. Maybe it'll fire up. I guess now I'm going to bar over the engine. You guys can't really see the crank pulley, but I'm going to rotate it. You should see the alternator and the AC turn, so let's do that. It's not budging. Nope. It's not going forward. That might be a problem. No, it's not budging. Huh. Huh. Not budging that way either. This project might be dead in the water before it even starts. So I've been trying, I cannot get the engine to budge. I swear, when I first saw this in the field, I swear I was able to budge this, just budge the alternator, and I swear I saw the crank pulley. I mean, it's down there though. I swear I saw it just barely move, just a quarter of a turn, you know, just a quarter of an inch or so. But I guess not. I can't get it to budge. Either way, it's to the point where you're either tightening or loosening the bolt. So we have to move on. Chances are that the cylinder, if any one of these valves is open, that cylinder is rusted. So my next course of action, I think, is to remove the intake manifold and to start putting some sort of PB blaster, WD-40, down in those cylinders, trying to free it up. I guess I could also remove the injectors and spray through there as well. I removed the fuel injector, the high pressure fuel injector lines, and now it's just a matter of removing the fuel injectors. Not too bad. I'll just remove all 4 of these, and then we can put some oil down in there. So this is connected directly to the crankshaft right now, and the engine is not turning. Right now it's loosening, it's barely starting to loosen, and I don't want to over tighten that bolt, but it's definitely not moving. I also jacked up the wheel on one side, put it in gear, it's a standard transmission, and try to jerk the wheel and try to get momentum on the wheel and tried to jerk that to see if I could make the engine budge. Nothing. And it's been sitting about a week and a half since I actually even took out all the injectors and poured ATF acetone mixture down each one, trying to lube it up. These two, I think the pistons are at the very top because they didn't take a ton, and these 2 cylinders must be at the bottom. So these ones I filled up to the top and it was kind of running out. But it looks like taking these out that anything in there ran down past the piston rings down into the crankcase. These ones I can't really tell because they're all the way at the bottom. So I mean, I put a ton in there, but I still wasn't able to fill them all the way up. So, but it should be enough to be sitting in there soaking. Not budging at all. I think the mouse nest, because the mouse nest was in here, I actually threw a scope down the passage, and I think the mice might have actually made little homes down in here. So that was my next step. I actually just barely took out all the bolts to the intake manifold, and we're getting ready to pop that off and see. I haven't seen it yet. And see if we got mouse nests all the way down those passages. Let's see how far they made a home. Yeah, that doesn't look good. I don't think. Man, that'll probably help me find my stuck cylinder too. So I'm gonna get you guys in here. Oh, this is supposed to come out. Like this. I don't know if you just barely saw that. But this cylinder right here, the mouse urine has corroded. Now those are mouse turds right there in my hand. It has corroded the aluminum, and the debris have fallen down into the intake, and more than likely every single one has some. These 2 aren't bad. This one has a little bit. This one right here, I bet you this is pretty gross. I don't know what this, I think it's just powdered aluminum. So I'm pretty sure this engine is just rusted from mouse urine in this cylinder right here. You guys can probably see in there better than I can, but it's probably full of just debris. So I'm going to try to get in there and see if we can clean that out. That first one doesn't look too bad. with that one. See if we can clean that out and see if something's holding up that piston. I don't know. Might be hopeless. You can see the moisture damage. I sucked it all out with the vacuum, but you can still see the rust and stuff. You guys can probably see better than I can. I don't know if I can get you guys in those holes or not. The black one doesn't show up as good as this one. Was just completely full in there. It actually drops down in. So it's been a week and I've had the engine under tension. What I did is I have a bar locked down on the crankshaft, and I have this bar not under a ton of tension, maybe 50, 60 foot-pounds. I just had it wedged with more penetrating fluid through the intake. I've just had it sitting here for at least a week now, and no budge. Nothing wants to move. So it's time to take off the intake manifold, or not take off the intake manifold, to take off the cylinder head. So I'm going to remove, to do this is an overhead cam, so I have to remove the timing belt off the front. I actually have to remove, I've already removed the intake, I'll have to remove the exhaust. Probably just some radiator lines. One or two little wires, looks like an alternator bracket, and she should just pop right off. So that's what I'm going to do now. Looks beautiful in there, nice and clean. These are not Torx. Those are actually squares, but 3 sets of squares put together. I have smaller versions of it. I don't know if I have that one that big. I guess we're gonna have to go look. So I have some, but I just don't have the right size. This is, see, this would be a Torx. There's actually 6 points. This would be a triple square. These are about the same size. This actually has 12 points. It's actually 3 squares, just barely offset. You know, so I'm just gonna make my own out of rebar. A lot of people don't know that you can actually harden rebar extremely easily. You can't really harden mild steel, but you can make hardened rebar. So I just made a single square. So I just made 1 square. It's nice and warm. Made sure it was the right size, which just happened to be 8 millimeters at the tips of those squares. And then I'll just take a socket. I just cut off a piece of this rebar. I'll just pound it in there, weld it up, and I have a well, a triple square socket, but it only fits in one, and that'll be enough to take off the thing I need. Get it straight in there, but we'll just put a little bit of a weld around there and pull out my piece. Pull off my head. Till magnet doesn't stick, take it, quench it in water. Not oil, water. That'll make it the hardest. Homemade square drive. Stick it in, fits in. Works. Twisting it. I don't know. Some of these are really tight. So where I last left you, I was using this homemade tool, and it did work. It removed all but 2 or 3 of the bolts, and they were just a little too tight, so I was a little nervous about stripping out these things. The homemade tool did work. I did not break it, but I decided, you know, I looked on Amazon, nowhere local, but Amazon had it a day later, and I got my proprietary triple square XZN or something like that bits, and I'm actually really impressed with them. I'll put a link below, but if anybody ever needs them, the tolerances on those are amazing. Taiwan is actually really good at making tools. Anything from Taiwan with tools is generally pretty good in my book. But this one I actually had to use quite a bit of force. There's just a couple of them that were in there super tight. Okay, got the last bolt removed in 3, 2, 1. That's what our inside looks like. And this one is holding fluid, so that means it's not draining past the piston rings. So this is my froze cylinder. And this is the one I didn't really clean any mouse stuff out of. So this is the frozen cylinder. So here's the passenger side. And the cylinder actually looks really good. And you can see there's actually a decent gap between the piston and the wall. Same with these. Decent gap. There's a gap, and all these drain fluid. This one, however, would not drain fluid. And you can actually see, I mean, you can see the corrosion, more than likely from rust, even sitting on top. But then it's all sealed up all the way around. My dilemma is, it's at the very bottom of the stroke, so I can't back it. You know, a lot of times you can back it away from the rust. Well, I can't pack it away from the rust at all. I gotta push it through. I'm gonna try to pick away at this groove in here. And maybe put some more penetrating lubricant in here. And see if we can get oil to pass through. Once we get oil passing through, then maybe we can push it up through. I guess if we damage it, we damage it. But the rest of the piston, actually, just the cylinder, feels really nice. I don't feel any, those are marks, but those aren't grooves. There's nothing that a fingernail or anything would stick in. This one, there's a little bit more of a ridge on this one, not much. So I just barely wiped all the fluid out of this one. It just will not drain past the rings. It's still rusted up. So what I'm gonna do, I mean, I spent another 5-6 days, and I've had it under pressure, under about 60 to 75 foot-pounds of pressure. This is on the crank bolt, and it's just wedged. So we're gonna use heat. We're gonna use my steam cleaner and try to blast it out of there and try to thermally shock it and see if we can open it up. This is what I'm gonna be using, is my hot seat. It's propane. That's the propane. You can't use smaller propane tanks than that, really. They'll freeze up because it uses so much propane. But it just heats it up and pressurizes it and blows it out this gun. So I'll get that fired up and we'll see if we can thermally shock it and open it up. I heated it, I dumped ice into it, I got the whole block hot. I mean, I blew through the water passages. The whole block was probably 250 plus degrees, 300 degrees. And then I would shock the piston by putting ice down in there and holding ice cubes on it, and nothing. It's not freeing up. So now's the next thing. We need to eat that rust away. Actually, something that eats rust. You can use, the quickest thing would just be to use like muriatic or sulfuric acid. Or hydrochloric acid. That would just eat right through the rust instantly, but it would also start pitting into the steel and it would dissolve aluminum pretty fast. Vinegar, that works. But that kind of, I'm not sure if that really damages the aluminum either. The one thing that is guaranteed to eat the rust and be safe, but it is slow, is molasses. So we got some water sitting in there, and we're just going to pour some molasses in, and this might take, it might take a week or two. It might take a while. But as a control to see what it's doing, I also have just a soda can here, and I have a really, really rusty rod. So we'll just pour some molasses, same amount I guess in here, roughly. And we'll just set this over in this cylinder. And I guess I didn't need to do that. I could just put this rod in there with it. Yeah, we'll just do that. I'll just pour all this in here. There we go. I guess that was pointless. Now I got extra molasses in here. So, time just to let it sit. I'll come out, stir it, see my progress, see how much rust is getting cleaned off this piece of pencil steel, and hopefully that'll eat away the rust and we'll be good. Maybe. Probably not. We'll see. See you in a couple weeks. So it's been 3 weeks. This is 3rd week. Last week I had to add a little bit of water because it had dried up. I didn't add any more molasses. But when I pull out this rod, it is rust-free where it's been sitting. So all the rust is eaten off, but something promising. This right here is connected to the crankshaft bolt. This had fallen off, and the hammer that was wedging tension had also fallen off. So I'm thinking the engine budged just a little bit and kicked it. Maybe. So you guys are going to watch and see. I don't know if you just look right here. Let's see if I give it some force, if we can just wiggle it back and forth and get it to budge. No. There it goes. You're kidding me? The engine is moving. And what do we look like? Actually looks really good under there. So bad news, I pulled out piston 2 and the engine still doesn't want to move up and down. It only wants to move up and down maybe about a ½ inch or so. So this one still has rust in between probably the bottom and the top ring, some sort of ridge. The other problem is I was hoping, to do this meticulously so it didn't break a ring. This one I didn't even force, but I just barely pulled this one out and I was looking at it and one of the rings is broken. So that means the whole engine needs new rings, and the rings actually look really good. But the number 2 has a broken ring already. Number 3 has a stuck ring that sometimes when you're trying to unstick them, they break themselves. So we're getting into, the cylinders look okay, but this is getting into re-ringing and everything else. This is getting into like a mild engine rebuild, which I don't know if I wanted to go that far. So since the rings are already broken, about the only way to free up this one, I guess, is to force it. We're just going to use ATF and acetone. So carburetor cleaner is essentially acetone. And this is transmission fluid. It just thins it out. The acetone just evaporates fast and allows it to run everywhere. There we go. There we go. We did it. And I don't even think I don't think I busted a ring either. So I guess I'll pop that one out because I need to see the cylinder, and I might as well pop this one out and we'll look at them. I think that's a little bit of rust and goo, and those rings are completely seized. So even if I got it undone, still have to pop out the piston to unseize all those rings, because this would just have so much blow by and it would be a horrible running engine. Cylinder actually doesn't look too bad. I mean, it's hard to... It's actually really smooth down there. It definitely needs a little bit of a hone, but I don't feel any pitting or anything, so that might clean up just fine. Still smells like a dirty mouse. So we came in here and I figured this panel was actually hollow. So we cut a hole. That's all mouse stuff. Lovely. That hole wasn't enough to reach, so I had to drill another hole. Yay. So if you watch this far, you want to see it run just as badly as I do. And that's going to be the next episode. We got piston rings, head gasket, timing belt, stuff like that. We're going to pull the whole engine because we got to tackle motor mounts, and the steering needs to be adjusted. You know, it's belling wired in, the rack and pinion. Some easy stuff to do when the engine's out, and the engine's pretty easy to pull on that. So that'll be in the next episode. I thought I'd give you guys a walk around and a little bit of backstory, what I know, and how I ended up with it. So I bought it at auction. I was not planning on buying it, but nobody else wanted it. I got it for dirt cheap, and one of the main reasons was because it looked in such disrepair, but there was no title to it. So no title, no history, no keys, and so nobody else wanted to take the risk. I did. And it has been a little bit of a headache. It took me absolutely like months and months to even get a title for this, to put it in my name, but it's officially in my name, so I didn't want to do a ton of work if I couldn't get it in my name, you know, so that took months. Winter came, stuff like that. So it has been over 2 years. I got it winter of 2 years ago, so it's been a little over 2 years. The videos you have watched progression to get to this point, waiting for the engine to free up, stuff like that. But got it for dirt cheap. All I know about it is it was last registered in California, and I bought it from a farm field in the Idaho-Utah border, so quite a ways from home. Likely, from what I kind of think the story is, you know, somebody came out to do farm work or visit family or something and didn't think it would make it home, and it was probably not a fun thing to drive with the steering being so loose and everything else. It looks like they were electricians or something. You know, got the electrician sticker there, but then you pop inside and you can tell an electrician owned it. You know, wiring a window roll, turn the headlights on with that. Yeah. The inside cleaned up pretty good. I don't know if I've ever buy a vehicle again that knowingly had mice in it. It took a ton of steam cleaning. The seats had to be completely removed, and just inside, outside steam cleaning. The only thing that's left to really do, I guess, is probably pull off the dash and the heater core, the heating, you know, system to pull. I'm sure there's mouse nests in that, because there's mouse nests in absolutely everything else. Being a California truck, there is absolutely zero rust underneath. Zero rust. But you're like, whoa, but what about that hole right there? This thing's a rust bucket. That is like the only rust on this entire thing is inside the cab, where there was a ledge here and mice made nests in that side and the opposite side. And so it's actually good that it rusted out, because that allowed me to clean it out. I pulled my stuff just straight out of this hole. I actually made it bigger just to get the mice stuff out. And but yeah, and there's a little bit down in here from that panel I cut open. This is the back side of it. There's a little bit, but you can see the whole bed was full of just leaves and debris, and there's no rust on that at all. And surface rust is not rust in my book, but you can see the California plate, so stuff like that. Overall, the body's in pretty good shape. It did have a ladder rack on it. I sold that to fund the project, so the ladder rack went to some other good home. Would have kind of been nice to have with the truck, but you know, you need the funds to. She needs to cannibalize herself to pay for herself. But that's it. That's how I ended up with it. Next thing is pulling the engine and transmissions, and we'll get there in the next video. Stay tuned, guys. Thanks for watching. Bye. You want to go on a drive? Oh, let's go. Yeah, she hopped right out. Hey, where are you going? Come on, let's go on a drive. Come on. Yeah, she knows it doesn't work, so she knows that's not a drive vehicle.